You're next in line at the grocery store. The woman ahead of you has a bag that probably costs more than your rent. Her cart is full, she grabs things without checking prices, and she pays without looking at the total. The man directly behind her is wearing a faded shirt and worn sneakers, carrying a handbasket with maybe 6 items in it, and when the cashier reads his total, he counts out bills from a rubber-banded wallet. Your brain files both of them instantly. One picture of struggling, one picture of doing just fine. You have almost certainly gotten them both completely backwards. The woman with the designer bag carries a rolling balance on 3 credit cards and hasn't opened her investment account in 4 years. The man counting out the bills crossed $1 million in invested assets last year and will cross $2 million before his daughter starts college. Real wealth in America has gotten very quiet, and the 10 signs that someone is genuinely rich have almost nothing to do with what most people have been trained to look for. Here's what those signs actually are. Before we get there, hold on to one idea because it explains all 10 signs at once. Income and wealth are not the same thing. Income is loud. It is the number on the paycheck, the bonus announcement, the raise someone mentions at a happy hour. Wealth is what quietly survives after the spending stops. The gap between what you earn and what you spend, multiplied by enough time. A physician pulling in $600,000 a year who spends every dollar of it has enormous income and almost no wealth. A plumber earning a fraction of that, who quietly invests a fixed slice of every check for 30 years, can end up the richer of the two by a margin that would be embarrassing to say out loud. Social media has made this harder to see than ever because every feed is built to show you the income, the cars, the trips, the restaurant tables, never the brokerage balance quietly compounding in the background. The genuinely rich learned a long time ago to ignore the performance and play a very different game entirely. And most people never notice them because they were never looking for the right signals. Here is sign number 1. They drive a car that tells you nothing. The single fastest way to misjudge someone's wealth is to look at what they drive, because the relationship between cars and money runs in almost the exact opposite direction from what most people expect. Look at where the market sits right now. The average new vehicle in America crossed $50,000 in 2025, an all-time high. The average monthly payment landed near $770. More than 1 in 5 buyers signed loan documents with payments above $1,000 a month, and nearly a quarter of them stretched those loans to 7 years just to make the arithmetic fit. The people doing that are not the genuinely rich. They are financing a performance and paying interest for the privilege. Research behind the classic Millionaire Next Door study found that the typical American millionaire spends roughly 1% of their net worth on the car they drive. Run that calculation on someone worth $2 million, and you land at a $20,000 vehicle, often bought used and kept for the better part of a decade. The most common brands among genuinely wealthy people are not the ones on billboards. Toyota, Honda, and Ford keep appearing at the top of the list because they start every morning and cost almost nothing to maintain. Think about Thomas, a retired contractor who spent 28 years building other people's homes. Thomas drives a 14-year-old Tacoma with a cracked windshield he keeps saying he'll eventually fix. Most people who see him in that truck assume he's a man watching every dollar carefully. His net worth crossed $1.8 million 3 years ago. When someone asked him why he doesn't treat himself to something new, his answer was simple. The truck gets him where he needs to go. Handing $45,000 to a dealership to solve a problem he doesn't have never made any sense to him. That faded paint is not a sign of struggle. It is the visible receipt of a decision that quietly funded his freedom. Sign number 2. They live in a house that is smaller than they can afford. Drive through any neighborhood where the homes look expensive and you will find, behind more front doors than you would expect, a stretched budget that is one slow month from becoming a real problem. The genuinely rich tend to do the reverse. They buy the modest house on the ordinary street, the one that costs far less than the bank told them they qualified for, and then they let the difference compound somewhere else for 30 years. Sandra works in hospital administration and earns a good but not extraordinary income. When she bought her home 8 years ago, the bank told her she qualified for up to $620,000. She bought a house for $280,000. Her colleagues assumed she was being cautious or that she simply couldn't stretch further. What she was actually doing was directing that $340,000 gap into her investment accounts instead of into square footage she didn't need. Most people never make that calculation. They take what the bank offers because having the bank tell you that you can afford something feels like permission. But the bank is not measuring your freedom. The the bank is measuring its own exposure. A bigger house carries more property tax, more insurance, more to heat and cool, more furniture to fill rooms nobody walks into, and a mortgage that owns you until you're 70 is not wealth. It is the opposite of wealth, dressed up to look like an accomplishment. The genuinely rich understand that a home is partly a place to live and partly a financial decision, and they refuse to let the second part quietly wreck the first. Sign number 3. Their clothes and their appearance give away absolutely nothing. Train your eye on this one and it becomes almost easy to read. Genuinely wealthy people have stopped using their bodies as a billboard. The logos are gone. The watch, if there is one, is more likely to be something practical than something you are supposed to recognize from across the room. They wear plain, well-made things that last for years and get replaced only when they actually wear out. Compare that to how status spending actually works. The luxury goods market in the United States generates over $400 billion a year, and the largest demographic driving that number is not the wealthy. It is middle and upper middle earners trying to signal a position they haven't quite secured yet. The flashier the brand, the louder the message, the more likely you are looking at someone trying to convince the room of something they haven't fully convinced themselves of either. A person who knows their number, who knows exactly how many years they could live without touching a paycheck, does not need a single visible label to feel secure in that knowledge. People in the wealth world have a name for this now: stealth wealth, and it has quietly become the dominant style among those who actually have it. Plain quality items with no visible branding, shoes chosen for how long they last, a bag with no hardware announcing its maker. Most people read this as frugality. What it actually is the complete absence of anything left to prove. And if the silence on the outside is one tell, the next sign is where the real separation begins to show up, but only if you know exactly where to look. Sign number 4. They go quiet whenever money comes up in conversation. Listen at any gathering and you will quickly notice who narrates their own spending. Someone always mentions what the trip cost, what the renovation ran, what the bonus came in at. The genuinely wealthy are almost never that person. They have a consistent and noticeable habit of saying nothing about prices, income, or purchases, and the reason runs deeper than simple modesty. Part of it is strategic. Talking about money invites comparison, requests, resentment, and attention that creates more problems than it solves. But the bigger reason is that for them, money stopped being exciting a long time ago. It became infrastructure. The boring system humming in the background that lets the rest of life run, and nobody throws a celebration every time the plumbing works. Think about Elena, who spent 20 years running a small accounting firm and quietly used the income to buy commercial real estate one building at a time. She retired early, lives in the same house she bought in her 30s, and drives a 7-year-old sedan with a dent in the rear bumper. Ask her what she does and she says she's retired. Spend an afternoon with her and you would never guess that she collects more in monthly rental income than most people earn in full-time jobs. She lets every conversation about money drift past her without ever revealing a number. People who loudly perform financial success are usually still climbing towards something or performing a position they haven't secured yet. The ones who actually get there tend to go quiet because there is nothing left to prove and a long list of reasons to stay out of the spotlight. Sign number 5. Their money is invisible because it is always working somewhere you cannot see. This is the heart of the whole thing. The actual dividing line between someone who looks wealthy and someone who is. The genuinely rich keep the bulk of their assets in places you will never encounter at a dinner party, and they feed those places every single month, mostly on autopilot. While the crowd chasing appearances routes money into visible upgrades, the quietly wealthy are maxing accounts that most people leave half empty or completely untouched for entire decades. Look at what the system allows in 2026. You can put $24,500 into a 401k. You can add $7,500 into an IRA on top of that. If you are on a qualifying health plan, a health savings account takes $4,400 as an individual or $8,750 for a family, and it is the rare account that gives you a tax break going in, tax-free growth while the money sits, and tax-free withdrawals for medical costs on the way out. Employer matches can push the combined 401k limit all the way to $72,000 in a single year. Most people never reach that number. The genuinely rich treat it as a target. And once those accounts are full, they do not stop. They keep going into a taxable brokerage account, broad index funds, bought every month, never touched, year after year, while life happens around them. The design that makes all of it work is automation. The money moves before it ever hits the checking account, gets invested that same day, and then gets ignored. They never see it. They never get the chance to spend it on something that will be worth nothing in 3 years. Paying yourself first on autopilot instead of investing whatever happens to be left at the end of the month is most of what separates the people who quietly get rich from the people who always mean to start next year. Max out a 401k at this year's limit with a historically normal 7% annual return, and after 30 years, you're looking at roughly $2.5 million from that single account alone. James is a registered nurse on a perfectly ordinary salary. He drives a paid-off Camry and brings his lunch to work every day. Most of his coworkers assume he's being careful with a tight budget. What they don't see is that he has maxed every available account for 12 years and his net worth has crossed $890,000 and is moving toward the $1 million line faster than most people around him realize is possible on his income. His wealth is enormous and completely invisible because it lives inside a brokerage account instead of on his wrist or parked in front of his house. Sign number 6, they owe almost nothing to anyone. Americans now carry more than $1.2 trillion in credit card debt. A record. The average interest rate on balances that people actually carry sits near 22%. Roughly 6 in 10 cardholders carry a balance from one month to the next, which means tens of millions of households are paying 22% for the privilege of having already spent money they didn't have. A balance sitting at that rate roughly doubles the total cost of whatever you bought in a little over 3 years. Buy something for $1,000, ignore the statement, and you have effectively paid for 2 of them while only ever using one. The genuinely rich live on the opposite side of that equation entirely. They use credit cards heavily, sometimes for many thousands a month, collecting points in cashback and travel miles, then wipe the statement completely clean before a single cent of interest can attach itself. Car loans rarely appear in their financial picture because they paid cash for an unremarkable vehicle years ago. Any debt charging more than their investments can reliably earn gets eliminated on contact, while a low fixed-rate mortgage locked in years ago might get left alone on purpose so the cash can keep compounding somewhere more productive. What you end up with is a person who owns nothing flashy and owes nothing to anyone. Freedom from payments is its own deep form of wealth that most people dramatically underestimate. When none of your money is already spoken for before you open your eyes, every dollar you earn that day is genuinely yours to direct. That shows up in how a person carries themselves long before you could prove it on paper. There is a looseness about someone who doesn't owe the bank a cent that the heavily financed simply cannot fake, no matter how new the car in their driveway looks. Sign number 7. They stay completely calm when money goes wrong. Watch how a person responds when an unexpected bill arrives, because financial pressure is a kind of truth serum. The transmission fails on a Monday. The water heater quietly floods the basement overnight. The job disappears with 2 weeks of notice. For most households, any one of those events alone is an emergency that ripples into everything else. The national personal savings rate has been sitting near 4% of income, which is not enough cushion to absorb a real shock without consequences. The genuinely rich meet that same bad news with a calm that can look almost out of place, and that calm is not luck or temperament. It grows directly from a real emergency fund sitting in a specific kind of account that most people have never bothered to open. The national average interest rate at standard savings accounts is about 1/3 of 1% right now. Some of the largest banks in the country pay as little as 1/100th of 1%, which is effectively nothing at all. A high-yield savings account, which takes about 10 minutes to open, is paying around 4%. Put $20,000 in a competitive high-yield account, and it earns roughly $800 a year while you sleep. That identical $20,000 sitting at the national bank average earns about $76. At the bottom of the barrel rate most people are actually earning, your reward for the entire year is approximately $2.20. The genuinely wealthy person and the person who looks wealthy can be holding the exact same balance. One collected $800 this year, the other collected enough for a small coffee. Multiply that gap across every dollar and every year of a lifetime, and you begin to understand how the distance between two similar-looking people slowly becomes a canyon nobody can cross. And if that calm is one of the most underestimated signals on this list, the next one is probably the most misread habit of them all. Sign number 8. They buy the good version once and then keep it for years. There is a quiet pattern in how wealthy people shop that on the surface looks like spending more rather than less. They buy the well-made boots, the solid wood table, the reliable appliance, and they pay a real price upfront for it. The move that changes the math entirely is what comes after. They keep that item for 10 or 15 years, while someone trying to look affluent cycles through 3 cheaper replacements and 2 trendy upgrades in the same window and quietly spends more in total to end up with less. Cheap turns expensive the moment you buy it 5 times. The genuinely rich think about cost as a long-term number, not a sticker price. Their homes fill up with older, excellent, deeply unfashionable things that simply refuse to break. When something fails, their first thought is repair, not replace. Because a $70 fix on a great appliance beats an $800 replacement that is somehow built worse than the thing it replaced. They tend to know a reliable mechanic, a tailor, a shoe cobbler who can restore something worth keeping. To a culture trained to throw everything away and upgrade on a schedule someone else set for them, this reads as almost eccentric. In reality, it keeps a significant amount of money in their pockets that everyone around them hands over repeatedly without ever adding up the total. Sign number 9. They have no trouble at all saying no. Pay attention to who can decline a social expense without drama, because the genuinely rich are remarkably comfortable opting out of the spending that quietly drains everyone around them. A destination event in another city that doesn't fit the year. A group dinner at a restaurant that doesn't make sense for the month. An upgrade that everyone is buying purely because everyone else is buying it. They say no without apology and without a long explanation, and from the outside, this can look like they simply cannot afford to participate. The truth is closer to the opposite. They can afford almost any of it precisely because they spent years declining the things that didn't actually matter to them. Lifestyle creep, the slow expansion of every expense as income rises, is the most reliable wealth killer there is for people who earn well. Most people receive a raise and immediately find new ways to fill the extra income. The genuinely rich receive a raise and mostly hold still. The gap between what they earn and what they spend widens, and that gap is where real wealth is constructed. Kevin received a meaningful raise 3 years ago and changed essentially nothing about how he lives. Same apartment, same car, same weekly routine. The entire raise flows straight into his investments before he ever sees it. To friends who all upgraded their lives the moment their own incomes climbed, Kevin can look almost stubbornly rigid. What they don't see is that he spends freely and without hesitation on the 3 or 4 things that genuinely matter to him and goes completely silent on everything else. That selective willingness to disappoint the crowd is not deprivation. It is the quiet discipline that funded a freedom nobody around him has caught up to yet. Sign number 10. They have stopped trying to look rich because they finally are. This is the deepest signal, and the one that quietly ties every other one together. At some point, the genuinely wealthy simply stop performing wealth because the performance was always a substitute for the real thing, and they no longer need a substitute. All the energy most people pour into looking successful gets redirected into things that do not photograph well. Time, flexibility, the ability to walk away from a job that has become toxic, a client who has become impossible, or a deal that simply doesn't feel right. The capacity to put a child through school without loans, to carry a parent through a difficult year without it becoming a financial crisis, to take an ordinary Wednesday off without asking a single person for permission. That is what real wealth actually purchases, and most people spend entire decades chasing the visible version without ever getting close enough to the real thing to understand what they have been missing. Go back to that grocery store from the beginning, the woman with the designer bag who paid without looking at the total, and the man in the faded shirt counting bills from the rubber-banded wallet. You can read it now. You know which one the bank statement actually reflects. You can see which one is still performing and which one stopped performing a long time ago. Every single sign you just went through points back to the same truth that makes most people genuinely uncomfortable. Looking rich and being rich are 2 completely different skills, and the people who quietly master the second one almost never waste any time on the first. The car that tells you nothing, the house smaller than they could afford, the clothes with no logos, the silence whenever money comes up, the accounts you will never see, the debt that barely exists, the calm when things fall apart, the one good thing kept for 15 years. The easy no, and the complete absence of any need to prove anything to anyone. Those are not the habits of someone who lost the game. They are the fingerprints of someone who quietly figured out how it actually works and went out and won it. And the moment that understanding clicks for you, you start seeing them everywhere. Not because they suddenly appeared, but because you finally know what you're actually looking at.